This is Talking Back to Suicide, and I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Dr. Diane Kaufman, although I like to be called Diana for my creative self. And I'm a retired child psychiatrist, which I have to say also includes adults. So I'm an adult and child psychiatrist and a poet and an artist and the founder director of the Hold On campaign for suicide prevention that uses the power of art to educate, connect, express, and heal. And there's Kino coming all the way from South Africa. Right? You introduce yourself.
I'm not very good at that, to be honest. If I have to be completely honest with you and the listeners, I am not good at that. I still have those moments in life when people ask me, Kino, what do you do? Like, just say, it's a random person that doesn't know me. What do you do? I find it so difficult to, pin it down to one or two words of who I am and what I do. I find it so because it's so many different components of my life. So now what I've done on social media is I've just labeled myself. Okay, no, this is what I did. Like you Google yourself. That's what I do now. You Google yourself and let Google tell you who you are.
That's so funny.
Yeah, that's what I did. So I went on to Google and now they got AI mode. So AI is now gathering all the information about Kino Isaac online and, summarizing who Kino Isaac is. And that actually assisted me. And I was actually, proud of what it was telling me. And it's actually giving whoever is Googling me out there the correct information and putting it down to who I am. I'm a media personality. I'm a creative entrepreneur. I'm a music producer. 3 words, Before it was like, I'm a podcaster. I also do creative work. I'm a music producer. I got my own label. I got my own consulting agency. It's too much, to like put it down to who you actually are. So now I've just labeled myself online as a creative entrepreneur because that's what Google is telling me I am. I'm a DJ. By the way, guys, I'm also a DJ.
And a mental health advocate.
Yeah. So you must do that. Like I do that randomly all the time. I will go online. I'll be like Kino Isaac. Let Google tell me who I am in AI mode, and it's on point. I give that credit. It's on point.
I have a AI story. I think maybe last week, I received an email, unexpected email, and it was talking about a short film that I had done with Lucia Martinez Rojas, who is a visual artist and videographer in Colombia, South America, whom I've worked with a lot. Lucia is so talented. And there was a short film that we did together based on a story that I had written when I was co-facilitating with an art therapist, Margaret Hartsook, at Good Samaritan Hospital when I had joined her as a volunteer with a writing program. I think it was called Words for Healing for with cancer. And the writing prompt that Margaret used, and we both participated in along with the other adults, was to choose different objects from baskets that Margaret had brought to the session. So I ended up choosing my own objects, and so there were 3 objects, and I ended up writing a story called 3 Objects Spoke to Me. And Lucia ended up so beautifully animating the story. My 3 objects that I chose from these baskets were a cloth flower bloom, maybe the size of my fist. And although that's not a good, metaphor, fist, flower, I don't know, think of something softer and more humane rather than a fist rolled up. But anyway, and then like a coin shape, a circle on one side, it had the word silence written out, and the other had a picture of a bird. And the third object was an angel pin with a heart, a crescent moon, and a star across the sash of the angel. And I ended up writing this beautiful story about someone who's lost on their life path, and all around is silence, and you see a bird flying, and the girl who didn't know she's an angel is lost on her life path, and she looks up at the moon and sees, instead of the moon, a flower blooming in the sky. And then she doesn't want this ecstatic moment to pass, and she's questioning, if I exhale, will the vision disappear? If I tell somebody, will they think I'm crazy? And then she has a magic dream, and the metaphor of the meaning of the bird's cry, the flower blooming, a garland which is around her neck, which is like a necklace, which is actually representing the heart, crescent moon, and star, like the meaning of all these things. Anyway, so there was this short film on YouTube, and I get this unexpected email. And the email is telling me how beautiful and meaningful this story is, which is true, right? Then it's telling me how to market the booklet and market the film, and also maybe even market the necklace. And there was a coloring book also that was created off of the initial images of the story, and then new images. So there was a whole package of materials out there. And I'm going to show it to you. Here it is. I printed it out. It says promotional strategy proposal, right? And it was prepared by Angela Barnes, Reader Reach Marketing. And it's several pages. These are double-sided pages, right? And it's different levels of their work with the project, and I'm interested. I want to learn more about it, right? And the emails back and forth are so gratifying to me. It's telling me how wonderful I am, and the work is so great. And then I Googled Angela Barnes. Who is this person? And then I found out that the whole thing is a scam.
Whoa. Wow. Yeah. I can't say I'm completely shocked about it, given the era that we live in today, because there is so many scams that are going on. And the more active you are online, like yourself, the more these scammers can get a hold of you so much more, easy compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So, for example, they will target you based on your niche. So I will also get, these emails about, we would love to feature you as one of Johannesburg. For listeners overseas who do not know where Johannesburg is, it's the capital of South Africa. So, or is it? Or is it Cape Town? I don't even know myself. It's one of the two. But Joburg is Johannesburg is like the main hub. Parliament is in Cape Town. I actually need to check it out. That's funny. but it should be Johannesburg. But anyway, so I get these random emails who want to feature you as one of the top 10 entrepreneurs making a difference in Johannesburg, South Africa, or one of the leaders to look out for in 2026 in the music industry. So you'll get these emails all the time, and they focus on your niche. So it's extensive research that's done by these scammers. I mean, it's a full-time 24/7 business, like any other business out there. And there's people that do fall for it. There's artists that fall for it. There's consultants that fall for it. There's entrepreneurs that fall for it because they don't know better. So I'm glad you actually brought this up, because it's a great topic to actually talk about it and link it to mental illness, because you get this email and you feel, wow, you know, I'm like actually out there. Someone has actually noticed me. And you go
Yes.
for it
Yeah.
because there hasn't been anyone else that's actually given me so much recognition. So I go for it, and then they're telling me, okay, I need to pay $2,000. And this is not like a ball figure, it's like legit, you know. This is how much you pay for this, and we're going to get you onto an online magazine, and you're going to get 5 free copies, you're going to get a trophy of recognition. And unfortunately, there's people that fall for this. And it's 50-50 because what they're saying they're going to do for you is true. They're going to write an article about you and they're going to publish it on an online magazine that they actually own themselves. So that's their credibility. But now they talk to people that don't know there is millions of online magazines, and how exactly are you measuring this, like your ROI on that $2,000 investment? They don't know much about that. So they pay the $2,000, they get the article online, most cases. They get whatever was promised to them that was going to be delivered, 5 free copies, your trophy, your certificate, whatever it may be, just to realize a month later that you still have to repost the article, and not many people are really bothered about clicking that link to go read what the article is about. And $2,000 later, you're no better off than you were before you actually took the deal.
Yes.
Now, for
Yeah.
me, that can have a negative psychological impact on an individual, right? Say an artist, for example, can have really bad side effects because now you're just feeling so demotivated. I've been scammed, $2,000 down.
Exactly. The
Nobody knows.
financial loss and then that idea
Exactly.
of trust. Who can, like, I can't
Yeah.
trust anyone.
Exactly. That can, for me, honestly, create a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxiety. And anything I mention now is true. I have received such emails. On one occasion, I thought, okay, here's somebody trying to scam me. So I'm going to play the game. And I think I only mentioned this to Dawn because Dawn was also getting, these emails. But of course, now he knows better to be like, hey, let me double check this. So anyway, so this lady, I forgot what her name is, she reached out to me. So the first thing I do is I Google you. And if I can't find you online or if I can't find your business online, then look, you know what? You are effing around with me right now. So what I did in this example, I think it was last year, I played the game and I played the game for about a month. I don't know why I never mentioned this to you. So it was the emails back and forth, knowing that I'm not paying you for nothing. I just wanted to understand what was going on, just so I can do my own research, so I can educate people about it. And after it reached like the final stages and they wanted payment, I was like, nah, this is not going to work out for me. You know, unless you can provide some data to back it up, how many people are actually clicking on your website, and show me the numbers, exactly. Show me some examples, some testimonials. And they couldn't provide those answers. And they were demanding the payment from me. And I'm like, and they even told me they're going to take legal action against me. And I was like, go ahead, please, go ahead. I love it when people tell me that, and I know I'm in the right. Go ahead and take legal action. So the lesson out of here for fellow artists out there in the world before you end up in depression because you lost $2,000 or extreme anxiety is you need to educate yourself in the online space. You know, yes, we have all made mistakes. This is one example, okay, where I was one up, but I've also made similar mistakes in my life. You saying now, look what happened to you, the emails up and down, but then you finally said, let me go online and look who this person is. But the takeaways here is you need to be vigilant in this day and age, and they are going to look for the most vulnerable artists out there because they know everybody is trying to get, a piece of the market. Whether you're in music, whether you're in the book industry, in poetry, you're attempting to do your best to get a piece of that market. You want a piece of the pie, you know, and now your passion is leading the way. And now it's not necessarily like a bad thing, but because you're getting followed by your passion and because your heart is in it, you're also not thinking. So you also need to like think and be like, oh, hold on, this sounds too good to be true. The positive out of it, yes, they targeted you because you are actually doing something good. So that's a good takeaway out of it. But artists out there need to do their research, check, just
What is
review
it,
them.
that word? Due diligence.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had another experience which dovetails this one, which is, and I believe I received the one from About Three Objects Spoke to Me first. And then shortly thereafter, I received an email here based in Portland, Oregon. They're having a book fair. I think it's in November, and it's a very big deal. This book festival that they're doing, where they have local and national, maybe international authors, and it's held in various places in Portland, and it's a very big event. And I've heard of this before. And I received an email from, allegedly, from the artistic director of the Portland Book Festival. And it was talking about that they're looking for unique voices to be represented at the festival. And we think you would be a good match for us. And there's different levels of support. For this amount of money, your name will be listed. For that amount of money, you'll be featured. For that amount of money, even more will happen, right? So I responded to that email saying I was interested. Please tell me more. And then I left, and I'm going to be telling you, I was like traveling both to New York and just recently to LA, related to mental health and creativity. And so when I got back and I ended up Googling, Angela Barnes with the first one, I ended up Googling for the second one, the name of the artistic director of the Portland Book Festival. And that person appears to be a real person. They're listed on the website for the Portland Book Festival as that person. But I think that my next step is to call them up and actually verify that that person's name hasn't been used by a scammer. Because if it were true, that I could participate in this book festival, I would be interested in doing so, because that would also be a way for me to get the Hold On campaign for suicide prevention name out there in a larger and a different community here in Portland and sort of overall Oregon. So I'm interested in following up, but I have to make sure that this is actually a real person, and the idea for financial support, which I can also understand. They need the festival to have financial support, right? That makes sense, but I have to make sure it's actually real, because I want to add something else, okay? Which is, then I got an email from Edinburgh, right? In Scotland? They're having a book festival. And we would love for you to be in Scotland. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's something not right with this. So going back to mental health and Hold On campaign, right? That I think we have to hold on to our passion, but also our intellectual reasoning, right?
Yeah.
And to trust, but trust with due diligence of following up. Because otherwise, I think a person could be emotionally crushed, right? Crushed that they were duped, that they thought somebody really got them and understood and valued them. And here we're trusting that person to help us on our mission. And they're just manipulative and scammers and criminals. And our good energy has been, well, it's still good, but it's being trying to be taken over by darkness, right? So we have to be careful. All of us need to be careful. It's sad, but true, right? That we just can't trust without at the same point making sure that our trust is what is being valued, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's, should I say thousands, millions? I don't know. Okay, we need to research it. But how many cases has there been out there where people have died by suicide because of financial circumstances?
Oh, yes, yes. I
So
want
buy
to
a
talk about that.
$2,000 that I've saved up, and it's taken me a year to save up that $2,000 so I can invest in my artistic career. For this is for anyone,
Yes.
okay? Not only for artists, we're just using artists as an example. And I now take a chance. I hand over $2,000 to whoever who's attempting to scam me, and later on I find out it's a huge scam. I mean, there's been plenty of examples
Yes.
of that leading to suicide. People who are in debt,
Yes.
leads to suicide.
I was just most recently, a few days ago, in fact, just yesterday, I got back home. I was in Santa Monica, California, for the Ethos Film Festival, which is a film festival dedicated to short films, feature films, music videos that have a valuable message for society, okay, and which may not be getting the audiences that they deserve. And I'm proud to say that our Hold On to Tomorrow music video was an official selection for the film festival. And I was there not only to be there for the 4.5 minutes of Hold On to Tomorrow, but to be in the audience and watch all these feature films and short films. And it was so eye-opening. So I would say all of them were excellent, and some of them were even superb. And one of the documentaries, so I can think of 2 documentaries that really speak to the Hold On campaign. There was one on farmers in the United States and what they are going through. And it made me think about suicide as also a social justice or a social economic justice issue, because there is such a high rate of suicide of farmers. And so much of that has to do with the fact that the farming industry, that the costs of running a farm are far exceeding, and especially even now, it was bad before, like it was terrible before, but now it's even catastrophic. What's going on with the Strait of Hormuz, right? And the cost of diesel fuel, that the farmers, who many of them, they have inherited their farms for generations, that they can't economically sustain the farm, and they're going bankrupt. And men and women, but in this case, it might, I'd have to check the statistics, but my sense is it's probably more so the men are dying by suicide related. Yes, they develop anxiety, but that anxiety also makes sense, right, in terms of what they're going through. In terms of severity of symptoms of the anxiety, it may cross over into meeting criteria for a psychiatric illness. However, it's not that the person is mentally sick. It's that they're, I'm trying to say that the realities of their life is causing an upsurgence of severe anxiety. It can also go into major depression, which or feeling sad, hopeless, depressed. And then if it meets certain criteria of severity and duration, then there would be a psychiatric diagnosis of major depression. But one thing that made me think about the social justice aspect of suicide is that in the documentary, they were stating, and I wish I remembered the exact numbers of, of how many farmers have a mental illness. So that statistic was stated, but I was thinking, oh yes, but what about the socioeconomic, societal illness that's going on, that's promoting people to be so stressed out that they're not able to cope, and tipping the balance of not coping into a psychiatric illness? I felt the documentary absolutely spoke to that, but I also wished in their text on the screen, it had beneath, so many have developed a mental illness. They made that statement about the society being sick, which is causing this. So that's an example of what you were talking about, Kino, of financial, financial devastation. And then it also goes into, they talked about in that culture that people are proud, right? They're proud and they don't want to let people know that they're having all these problems. And so they may not reach out for the help. Now, part of that help, it not only, quote, mental health help, right, and suicide prevention, and don't get rid of your gun, right, so that you don't, shoot yourself. There was one woman interviewed at the start of the documentary where her husband had shot himself. That's how he died. So that's what I wanted to share, about that. So you have that societal issue, and I wanted that to be said so much, even more so in the film. And then there was another film, was the first one that I saw when I got to the film festival. The film festival was several days before I got there, and I'll tell you why I hadn't been at the very beginning of it. But the first film section and the first film that I saw starting last Thursday was on, oh, this was so interesting. It was on a man who's Canadian, and he was a hockey player. And at one point had been very, very, very successful in his hockey career. And it told his life story. He also was, although not a farmer, he was involved with horses, and he tells his story as a man, right? And within the culture of like an elite athlete, right? And how he developed severe anxiety, and I'm trying to remember the early part of his life story. I think the anxiety also began in his childhood, where I think his father had been alcoholic and there was violence in the home, and naturally he would become anxious related to that. But then he also, as an athlete, had a horrifying accident happened to him when he was playing professionally. He was one of the guards, and there was an accident where another team member sort of was, I don't know, an interaction in terms of the sport of hockey between the two of them. and the other hockey player fell, and somehow his ice skate, the blade cut across this gentleman's throat. And there he is on being televised, and he's bleeding out. Right? And thankfully, he got to a hospital and he was rescued. And it shows a whole trajectory of his life in terms of anxiety, depression, alcohol use, change in his career. But it also showed, with, I think, tremendous self-courage and vulnerability, how eventually he was able to be helped. He went for help, so it's a very, very important story. I'll put in the credits the name of the film, right, of these two films, and especially with the one that I just talked about, the name of the athlete that I'm talking about. But that film I found so powerful because he was so open and vulnerable, and just from the heart about the suffering that he had gone through and the self-imposed silence, and how in his role, and I'll put role with also quotation marks around it, that how he felt he had to be in that role, right? And that role of being an elite athlete, he felt that he could not reach out for help, and that it was better for him, right? Because he'd attempted suicide before and was hospitalized, and he wasn't telling anybody. And it was better for him to be dead than to actually share that he was in a bad way. And I just felt that this film, both of the films, need to be seen far and wide. And my plan is to reach out to the film producers, directors, the people involved whose stories were being told, to see if they could be on the Hold On campaign.
Yeah. So would you say the takeaway for someone that watches this is to ask for help?
What mean? So what is the takeaway?
The takeaway.
Yeah. The takeaway is that, no, I would say no matter how, well, I think there are a couple of takeaways. That one is that no matter how dark and desperate and dire the situation is, or you may be feeling, don't, hold on to your life, right? Hold on to your humanity, that there is help available, right? There is, and I would say the help in terms of preserving your life to live for another day, and that problems can be, I don't know if I want to say solved, right? Because I'm thinking of someone who's about to lose their farm, that it could be, sadly, tragically, that they're not going to be able to keep the farm, right? However, in the balance between keeping the farm and keeping yourself alive for yourself, for your spouse, for your children, for your parents, for your friends, if you're spiritual, for your God, that balance, I feel that the problem can be addressed, right? So that you can live for another day, right? And continue in your life, that your life may take a turn in terms of another way to earn a living. If there are debts to be paid, how can those debts be managed in a way that's possible for you? So I would say a strong takeaway message is, and especially in these films, because it very much focused on men, right? That that all of a sudden I was thinking about pride. That maybe there's that false pride, that we all may have, right? And then there's maybe what could be called, I don't know, true pride or godly pride or your humanity or your worthiness, that pride, right? Someone during one of the films and in one of these Q&A sections, I forget which film it was. It wasn't with these ones that I just shared with you, but somebody talked about, they used the phrase, hold on to your humanity. And I thought, what a beautiful phrase. And that also speaks to suicide prevention, the humanity of you, right? That yes, you are suffering, but hold on to the wholeness of you, right? That there's value to you, right? And that there are people, not the scammers, right? But there are people who want to help, that they do want to help, and that there is a whole variety of help that's out there, and that you're worth being helped. And to be able to hold on to that, and to see men talk about that, and men who have they've turned the corner, right? So being in that total darkness, they've turned the corner, and there's either a lot of light shining them or much more light shining on them, and they know, and I think this is another part, that that we need to be vigilant for our own well-being, that it may not be a one-time turnaround, that we have to keep on valuing ourselves and keep on, as needed, reaching out for help. And also in these films, these men and their families that were sharing and speaking, their story, their life experience is helping other people.
Yeah,
and that's so important too.
It's showing other people that what you going through, I've gone through it as well. I mean, this podcast alone has proved it over and over and over with all the organic stories that we've had since Talking Better Suicide was launched. You use a key word, value, but nobody should blame themselves, because this is just how we have been brainwashed from previous generations. A small percentage of each generation, like you, for example, your mindset has evolved because you got a growth mindset and you've detached yourself from the materialistic world around us. But your basic middle class family, no matter which country or corner of the world you're from, you go through this. Okay. The middle class will always be targeted by the entire system. That's the reality of it. So sitting with the debt and the trauma, the anxiety and the house and the medical aid, whatever it may be. The rich doesn't pay for taxes, and guys who are broke, they don't pay for taxes as well. Why would they pay for taxes? The rich gets a ticket, a parking ticket, for example, right? They'll be like, whatever, just push it aside. That's the mentality. If the lower class gets a parking ticket, they're like, also, whatever, I can't afford to pay for this anyway. So, chuck it away. But the middle class, anyone in the middle class now in the center gets a ticket, anxiety is on the rise. I need to go settle this. Oh no, they're going to come for me. They're going to come take my car or my house. And that's just how we've been brainwashed, because we've become so attached to the materialistic world around us, including myself. once upon a time in my life. And then I started to, value myself more, give love to myself more, because it starts and ends with me. So my mentality is, if I keep working on my craft and keep adding more value to me. So Kino, when he was born, he started off at $0. As he progressed in life, he reached $5, then $10, then $20. So each day I need to keep adding more value to me, whether it's educating myself, growing my business, growing the podcast, whatever it may be, keep adding value till it gets to $1 million. So whatever I may be attached to now, even if I lose it for whatever reason, I know I still got value. So what can I do?
And of course, you were, and we all were born with infinite value. So you talk about like your spiritual essence.
Yeah, but we don't focus on that because we've been so brainwashed. Okay, I need to buy this car because my parents said I need to buy a car. I need to buy my own car now. So you put yourself in debt to buy the car. Okay, now I need to buy a house because they told me I need to buy a house. Now I go buy a house that I can't afford, and now I'm sitting in this job 9 to 5, which I hate, but I have to do it because I need to pay for the car. I need to pay for the house. And this is just the reality of the world. And in that middle class bracket, so many people are living with that depression, unhappiness, anxiety, because they become so attached. Instead of saying, let me practice humility, and this is what I did for myself 5 years ago, is I said, okay, sit down. It's time to practice humility now. What are my goals? This is what I want to do. This is what I want to achieve over the next 10 years. Okay, what do I need now to cut down in my life that adds no value, right? And just get rid of it so I can focus on this, so I can invest in this, so I can invest in myself. Okay, let me look at the car. And this is a true story. I got rid of my car. I don't need my car. It's COVID. Where am I going? I'm going nowhere. Even now, unless it's important, okay, I need to go somewhere for a meeting, or maybe there's an opportunity, or I'm hosting an event, and that's not far as well. Okay, but there's other means. We live in the era of Uber now, right? There's other means to go about it. But if you are holding on to something and paying for that object for the sake of status, and another word you mentioned, pride, then you are only, what's the word to use here? You are only, help me out here, like, it's like self-infliction. Like, you're only adding more, future trauma to your life. Let me say it in those words. Because you're holding on to adding no value. To pay for that object is taking a lot from you when you can, put it down another avenue that's going to add more value to my life. But people don't want to do those things. Okay, I'm eating out in a 7-day week. I'm eating out 4 days of that week. Why? Why are you doing that? I need to now buy the most expensive clothing brands out there in the world. Why? Once you start asking yourself, like, why? Why am I doing this? What values is actually adding to my life? Then you start to realize. I remember actually being with an Uber driver. It was actually before I went to Durban, and there was a sports car that flew past us. And him and I, like, we were the same age group. So he's like, that car. And I'm like, no, I don't even notice these things anymore. And he's like, why not? So I started, explaining to him what I'm explaining to you and the listeners now. The people who are driving that car, and I'm not saying it's all of them or it's a bad thing to have nice things in life. It's not what I'm saying at all. But you also need to weigh at what expense. What is it costing me to have this in my life? You need to ask yourself those questions. So I explained to him, like, that person probably bought that car, and this is the higher percentage in society, to impress somebody for 5 minutes, right? Whoever was around them, they impressed that bunch of people for like 5 minutes, and that's it. And your short-term memory has already gotten rid of it. So who's winning or losing now? Because you still have to pay the installment for that car or the maintenance towards that car to impress people for 5 minutes. Doesn't make sense. So my point I'm trying to make is that society has trained us to drain so much from us. You know, we just like I need to like I'm also so sick and tired of people saying, okay, I need to go get a job. Okay, and then they don't get a job. Now they're in depression because they're not getting a job. And I'm like, why don't you try starting your own business, something small, just to get yourself going for now? I can't. Why can't you? Who said you can't? No, my parents, my grandparents said I can't. It's not something they did, so it's not something I can do. That limited belief that we've inherited. I know I've said a lot here, I've unpacked a lot here, but moral of the story is, and we look at Buddhism and they live by this, and they believe we shouldn't get attached, because getting attached will lead to disaster.
Yeah.
Because what if you also inherited millions of dollars because your family built, great wealth, but you never add value to your life? You'll be living off their value. And for whatever reason down the line, you lose that wealth. It's inevitable. You going to die by suicide because there's no value that you got, that you can give back to society. Or how do I stand on my own 2 feet? Once again, not saying it's a bad thing to have wealth, but at what cost?
Yes. And what you said too about that idea of attachment, it goes back to what you said before about who am I, right?
Yeah.
Who am I? Especially, well, I think it's true in all aspects, but in bad times or bad events or relationships that broke up or quote failures that we experience. Do we identify, and I know this has happened to me, it almost becomes I am that bad experience. And if I identify myself with that external event or the meaning that I'm giving to, that's important to remember, because I know we all forget this, but in a sense, events happen, right? It's the meaning that we give to the event, right? So if the meaning I give to the event is that I'm a loser, I'm a failure, no one ever is going to love me, my life is never going to work out, that if I give those events that meaning and I attach myself to those thoughts or those experiences, then I'm going to start falling into a deep pit of despair. Right? So that attachment becomes so important. And sometimes, when we have a glimmer of awareness that no, I am not that car, right? I am not that relationship. But we also may need to go to a counselor or a therapist or a psychiatrist or a spiritual pastor, right, rabbi, right, whatever, to talk it out and to begin to better know who we are and also the why we are. It's interesting. We talk a lot about who we are, but we virtually never talk about why we are.
Yeah.
But what do you think of that? If somebody said to you, Kino, why are you? Like, okay, I know who you are, but why are you?
Yeah.
What would you say?
I mean, it's similar to, and we brought this up on previous episodes before, is people need to ask themselves, why am I here? So your question is similar to that as well. Like, why am I here? Like, why did God place me here to do what exactly? So to answer your question of, the why, I can use this podcast as example. This is part of my purpose, above it all, to help other people, navigate life's challenges, because that's how we view it, as challenges. When you mentioned the word failure, we were trained that there's something wrong with failing. So the moment we fail once, we think, okay, that's it. It's over for me because we were trained that way, not realizing that, yeah, you can fail at what you are attempting to do, but doesn't mean you give up. You go for it again, you just change the strategy.
Yes,
And
yeah. And then failure can also become, okay, what can I learn from this? That whatever happened, what is the gold that I can mine from this experience? Right?
yeah, what
Because
can I
I
take
know
away from it?
yes, yeah. That may not change the specifics of what happened, because I know I shared with you, Kino, that recently I was robbed of my purse when I was sitting in the hotel lobby in the daytime, which was a very frightening experience. And the good news is that I was not physically harmed or attacked during the robbery, which is the most important thing. And it was very overwhelming. It was frightening. The person seemed to have been almost stalking me where I had been, and then I started having memories of other times that I had been robbed, but I needed to take get a grip, kind of, right? And I said to myself, literally, almost saying out loud to myself, what can I learn from this so that I learn the skills and the behaviors to become more safe, right? What is it that I can do that's in my control, knowing that so much is not in my control, but there are some things that are in my control. And I'm going to take from that experience ways that I can become safer. And there were ways, that that I'm now following, right? For anybody listening, when you're seated in a chair and you have a purse next to you, do not just have it next to you, have some sort of strap across your body attached to your purse, so they're not able to run by and snatch your purse, right? And there are other, don't keep all of your money, your credit cards, your passport, whatever, all in one place in your purse, because if that goes, you're in a bad way. So whatever we can learn, that also changes the idea of failure. So it becomes, well, no, this happened, right? But it's going to make me a wiser, better person for my own well-being. But then I can share with other people what I've learned to also try to help them. And that's uplifting. But again, also the choice goes back to us. We have to remember, and I know this is hard to remember, but we have to remember that we have choices. We can make choices in our thinking.
Yeah, 100%. It all starts and ends with us. That's what people need to really realize. It all starts and ends with you. You win some, you lose some, but if you have given your life enough value, okay, this happened to me. What can I take away from it? What's the blessing in disguise? And then you move on. And once again, I know what we talk about in the show can sometimes seem like so much more easier said than doing. But all I'm saying is try. There's no harm in trying to give your life value. If you have to sum up this episode, it's about you and the value that you need to give yourself. Like you just said that I'm thankful that nothing happened to me. They took the purse, but nothing happened to me. That means you value your life. You know you can get back the passport, or if you get hijacked, for example, okay, cool, I can always get another car. Or they break into the house and they steal my clothes. Okay, I can always get back clothes. But you can't get that in life. You know,
Yeah.
can't get back. We're not living in a world that's all, blossoming all the time. Yes, there is more good in the world than there is bad. I truly believe, no matter what we see happening around the world. But we also live in a world where, what, bad things can happen. So, just embrace it when it does and learn how to move on, from it. Best way that you can.
And that saying, like tomorrow is another day, it's very true.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is not today. Things
Yeah.
can change, right?
Yeah.
And
I actually
especially,
have a mantra.
yeah.
There's a mantra, and this mantra works great for me. So if anybody wants to go out there and try it, please go for it. And don't think you're crazy, because I even do it in public, because I don't care what people think about me, So whenever I reach a roadblock, no matter how, small or big it may be, I just, you know, pause, I take a deep breath, and I say, everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. I take another deep breath, and I just move forward. And I feel so much more calmer. And believe it or not, it does work out for me. You know, it does. So just try it. Some people, sometimes we think, all these things, are like, no, that's nonsense and so on. Just try it, try it. And I also learned this from someone else, with one of their books, and it really does work. Find your own mantra, maybe. I don't know, But everything will always work out for you if you just give yourself the opportunity for it to work out for you.
Thank you, Kino. Thank you.
I don't know what the hell I can do, It's with you, We can be and we can guide you, and we can share real life examples, and we can bring all these phenomenal guests from all around the world to share their stories. But that's like the best they can do, is they can share that with you on the podcast. Or you can purchase one of their books, or you can read Diana's poetry. It's there for you to consume, to take in, to practice day by day. But you need to do it,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm thinking back to our phrase, the Hold On campaign, to hold on to what you said, like, I can do it. I can try. The littlest bit of change can be significant.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a person, I know this has happened for me, that I'll imagine I have to do A, B, C, D, and E all the way to Z and beyond. And then it becomes overwhelming, right? And then sometimes it's like, oh, that's too hard. I think I'll do nothing. But no, you could go from A to B. You can go to A and a half, right? That to hold on to, there is something that I can do, right? That either I can do it, or in my reaching out, calling 988, reaching out to a friend, reading some interesting, uplifting article rather than doom scrolling. There is something that I can do that's going to be a change for the better. Not to give up into, there's nothing I can do, there's nothing anyone else can do, that it's always going to be this dark and miserable, so I don't want to be here. All those are lies. They sound so true, but they're not true, right? That we have to remember that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Well, thank you, Kino. We have a guest coming next week, who I'm looking forward to, and you'll find out who she is next week.
So tune in, listeners. Tune in. We'll give listeners like a teaser of who to expect.
a woman who's going to share how her writing and her life experiences are changing lives.
Nice.